we are a developing startup ecosystem. Every year we are seeing the quality of entrepreneurship go up, the maturity of the founders go up. We are seeing for the first time that founders are now selling their businesses and becoming serial entrepreneurs. We're still early days, but the opportunities are huge because there's just so many challenges, whether it's healthcare or agriculture or education or financial inclusion or logistics or transportation. India has thousands of problems,
Right.
which the government and public sector are not going to solve. And someone has to solve it. And who better position than startups with their innovative ideas and leveraging technology.
Hey guys, welcome back to Don't Follow the Leader. My name is Noah Martins, and if this is your first episode, this is a platform where we speak to society's exceptions and try to understand how they think and what motivates them. So if you think that's something you'd be interested in, don't forget to click the button down below and subscribe. It would also be really cool if you could follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter if you want more updates on what we do or even insights into how we get our guests onto the show and why. So that makes me very excited to talk to today's really special guest. He is an entrepreneur himself and the founder of one of India's very first venture debt funds. Nilesh Kotri, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Noah, and thanks for having me on the show.
All right. Before we talk about venture debt and your job, what are you thinking about when you're not thinking about Trifecta?
These days, it's mostly about, humanity, given that we are in the midst of the COVID situation, and just pray and hope, that people are going to stay safe and things don't go out of hand. Right. But listen, I'm a passionate entrepreneur. Trifecta Capital is a startup. It's a 5-year-old startup.
Right.
I'm very passionate about startups and founders. I like building businesses. That's what I've done in my last 30 years. And, at Trifecta, we have a large portfolio of nearly 60 companies. So if I'm not thinking about Trifecta Capital, I'm thinking about, our portfolio companies and what they could be doing differently and how they should be taking advantage of the situation and, what kind of transformation they can do at this point in time. So, unfortunately, I'm deeply embedded in our portfolio, and so constantly thinking, about them. These days you can't go out too much, but I'm already thinking of hopefully trying to get a small vacation, at least in August. We had some big plans this year, which unfortunately we could not implement. But looking forward to a small vacation. We can just step out of the house.
Yeah. And what's your background like? How did you get here? How did you get to creating one of India's very first venture debt funds?
Interesting questions. I think it was serendipity. Okay. I didn't necessarily have a plan. In fact, all my life I never had a plan. I was always very enterprising, and looking back, I realized that I had the good fortune of working under some great entrepreneurs of this country, Aditya Birla, Dinesh Kampani, Brij Mohanlal Munjal. I ended up working in some of their startups. I mean, those days, 30 years ago, nobody had, used the word startup. Yeah. But I was part of many of these new ventures that these great industrialists had set up, and I was young. I was only 20 when I passed out from BITS Pilani, and I was working directly with Aditya Birla, and I was just very excited about working in a chaotic environment, indulging in many areas of building organizations, whether it was finance or accounts or procurement or admin or operations. And, I got to learn because I work very closely with these gentlemen. I got to work about, building businesses. I got to work like thinking like an entrepreneur. I got to understand that. And, just became very passionate about building businesses. And, I did end up building a fairly large business. In solar to Accenture, it was Accenture's largest acquisition at the point in time.
Oh.
Went on to become the global head for ventures and acquisitions for Accenture, doing acquisitions for them globally. I mean, this was more strategic investments for Accenture. And then I met someone I had known for about 25 years. Someone who kind of started the venture capital industry in this country, called Rahul Khanna. And we realized that the startup ecosystem in India was gaining momentum. That they were fantastic entrepreneurs. There was great VCs. There was a lot of learning. There were a lot of challenges. And maybe it was time to build a new institution like a Silicon Valley Bank. Silicon Valley Bank, for those your viewers who don't know, is a bank that has been built to address the needs of startups. Yeah. And it's a bank, which thinks very differently, which understands startups, as compared to traditional banks like Wells Fargo or Bank of America, which may not necessarily understand what a WhatsApp is all about or a Twitter all about, especially when they were younger. And so we thought it may be a good time for us, to build a startup bank of India. And, we had to get started. So we launched our first product in 2014. We launched our second product in 2019. And so, at this point in time, we've have a fantastic, journey to this point, where, we've supported nearly 60 companies. Some of the greatest companies in India are part of our portfolio. And we continue to innovate on new products and services, and you'll hear a lot more from us over the next 12, 24 months. So yeah, it was largely the passion to build businesses, and right. So even as we are supporting founders and helping them build their businesses, we're building our own business.
This is something that you said made me think of this, and this is an observation that I've made, and you can tell me whether or not you agree. I feel like most founders haven't had a plan, and you're always being told to know what you want to be and decide what you want to work towards. But when you do that, the best case scenario is that you end up achieving the goal that you set out to achieve. But if you don't have a plan, and if you live life challenge by challenge, you could end up anywhere. And so most of the founders that I've spoken to are people who haven't always wanted to do any specific thing, but have found their passion rather than having planned to get there for a long time. Is that something that you agree with? That, having that unrigidness with your life can lead you to better places?
I think it's a personality trait, right? If you're adventurous, then you meander, and then someday you find your passion.
Right.
As I started my journey, I didn't necessarily think I'll be a founder someday.
Right.
But interestingly, my friends who've known me for 25, 30 years, actually tell me that they always thought I'll do something like this. So I think they could see it, but, I never thought, that this is the path that I'm going to take. And so I agree with you. I mean,
would you advise kids to know what they want to be, or would you advise them to be open to all sorts of options and not work towards any one specific goal for a long period of time?
The kids of these days are very, very smart. They know a lot. They're brave. Unlike our generation, where there were limited choices. Right. And then a lot of choices were decided by the communities and the society. And so the thing that I tell today's kids, and including my own kids, is just pursue your passion, and it doesn't have to be the straight-jacketed engineer, MBA, and it could just be anything. But just try to excel, try to be good at something, and it could be anything. It could be sports. Right. And so, I would just say, just pursue your passion, and it may take 5 years, sometimes 10 years to understand what your passion is, but that's fine.
Right. Coming back to Trifecta, could you tell me what the difference is between venture debt and venture capital, and why a startup would choose to take venture debt over venture capital?
Sure. So, in some sense, venture debt is, another form of capital that's available to startups.
Right.
Every business, whether it's a startup or a regular, traditional business of textile or petrochemicals or banking, always has working capital requirement. There's capex, there are deposits, and there is no business in this world which has no leverage. Yeah. And so, there is no reason why a startup, will not have working capital requirements, or they will not have inventory, receivables, deposits. They may be building warehouses, they may be buying, plant machinery, equipment. Uh, they may be buying vehicles, to serve the needs of their customers. And these kind of expenditures are best financed by debt. And so, in the US about 35, 40 years ago, as the venture capital ecosystem was maturing, people realized that there were needs of these startups, for working capital and for capex and things like that, which were not being addressed by the traditional banks.
Right.
They just didn't understand what these startups are all about. These were unique business models. I mean, whoever would have thought Airbnb would become what it has become. And so when you have these very new business models, you don't have comparables, and it becomes hard for people in the banking and non-banking sector to fully understand, how to underwrite debt in these companies.
Right.
And so, venture debt is just debt to startups.
Right.
And the underwriting is very different from a traditional debt. The structuring is very different. And so, one has to understand how startups behave, how they are built, for being able to, provide venture debt to these companies. So, any startup, which has working capital requirements, which has, investments to be made in capital expenditure, should evaluate venture debt. You can't build a business only on venture debt because, unlike, traditional loans, venture debt is always a small fraction of venture capital. So if you raise $5 million of venture capital, you'll get about $1 billion of venture debt, just because of the risks involved.
Right.
And so, I would encourage founders to always think of, the needs for capital, and differentiate your working capital and capex and things like that, and identify what those needs are, and try and get it financed via debt to the extent that it is available. Now, very few companies, are able to get venture debt because there is a very high bar, for them to get venture debt.
Okay.
Unlike a venture capital, which will make 10 bets and hope to make money in 3. In venture debt, we don't expect, any of those 10 bets to go wrong. Right. And so there's a very high bar, but, founders should always look, forward to financing through venture debt. It also helps them bring the cost of capital down. It helps them, conserve their equity in their businesses, because, debt, unlike equity, is temporary capital. Yeah, you can take it, pay interest, and service the debt, and the next 3 years you can retire it. But equity,
you're giving away a part of your company. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you give it away, it's gone.
Yeah. Right. And so, what are things that you look for in the startups that you invest in? Are there any red flags? Are there any moments where you're like, I have to invest in this, I have to lend to these people? What are things that you look for?
So, anything and everything that a VC looks for. So, a great founder, a great market opportunity, great business model, great team, supportive regulatory environment, and things like that. But from a venture debt perspective, we are particularly focused on those companies that are beyond concept stage.
Right.
Yeah, which have a good product market fit, which means that they could be 2 to 5 years old.
Right.
That there are positive unit economics. That for every dollar of revenue that you're earning, you're actually making a margin on it. But most importantly, I think, at least for Trifecta Capital, it's about the entrepreneurs. And
Right.
we are, given that we are entrepreneurs ourselves, and we come with a lot of operating experience. We like to find companies to work with, where we can bring our knowledge, experience, and relationships to play,
Right.
and help them become greater.
Right.
And so, we are very much about relationships. And so, if we like a founder, who equally values, what we bring to the table, that makes it an exciting journey for us.
And there's always this debate that I hear in these circles about whether do you invest in founders or do you invest in products? So do you have an answer to that? Like, if there's a founder that you believe in, but you may not believe in their product, would you still be willing to take that risk on the founder?
So as a venture capitalist, one would look at it that way. But as a venture debt provider, no. Venture debt provider, you have to be comfortable with the founder and the product.
Right. Yes.
So we don't take concept stage risk. So venture capitalists say, listen, this is a great founder, he'll figure it out. Yeah. That's not the stage at which we come in. We come in a little later.
Right.
And so by which time there is a good product market fit already.
Okay. Makes sense. And what's your favorite part of your job? You can tell me your favorite and your least favorite also.
The favorite part of the job, listen, we started this as a new industry in this country. And so the favorite part of the job is just, meeting great people, high quality people, all the time. So we're meeting, fantastic venture capitalists. We are meeting fantastic founders. We're meeting fantastic investors. So, Trifecta has some of the greatest institutions and business groups of this country as business partners and investors in our fund. So every conversation is very intellectually stimulating.
Okay.
And the best part of the job is just you're meeting smart people. You're able to share experiences, knowledge. You learn a lot from those interactions also. But I think the best part is just being close to energy. Every time we meet a new founder or meet one of our existing founders, we're always, thinking of new things to do. And especially in the COVID times, we've seen founders, innovate so much. They just had a little more time to think, and the kind of ideas that they've come up with is just, fascinating. So, I think, the best part of the job is all that, those intellectual conversations,
right.
and building businesses. And every time you achieve a little, that's something to celebrate.
Right. And I was speaking to this venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. His name is Akash Bhatt, and he runs a podcast himself called Desi VC, where he talks to Indian venture capitalists or American venture capitalists who invest in India. And he was saying that the kind of startups that have been coming for investments during the COVID times are of higher quality. Like, he was almost implying that because of COVID, the startups that were not going to make it just got eliminated from the equation. And he said that the kind of the quality of the startups that were coming to him were a lot higher. So is that something that you agree with?
I would put it the other way around. I would just say that the opportunity that COVID has presented is immense. Yeah, if you just look at it from an India perspective, digital absorption has gone up significantly. Yeah, we've accelerated digital absorption by 3 years.
Right.
People are now consuming yoga online. One couldn't have imagined it. I know millions of customers are buying groceries from our portfolio company. They're buying pharmaceutical products. They're buying education and so on and so forth. So I think, what COVID has done is just increase the attractiveness of startups because they leverage technology. And because the tech infrastructure is reasonably well built in India and has been growing, We've seen now elderly people who are now, grabbing their phones and doing a lot of things on WhatsApp and YouTube and so on and so forth. So I think it's just a far more exciting environment to build businesses in, than pre-COVID. And
Right.
I think this is the best time to build a business.
So you think that COVID has made it better for the Indian startup ecosystem?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And
There are a few who will get impacted. There are a few, say, in travel and hospitality or fintech, who may have got caught unawares. But the opportunity has not gone away.
right.
And so I would think that for startups, it's a far superior environment to build businesses in.
Right.
Barring this lull that COVID has created.
And what do you think about the Indian startup ecosystem in general as compared to that of other countries in the world? Where do we stand?
Yeah, I think, listen, we are a developing startup ecosystem. Every year we are seeing the quality of entrepreneurship go up, the maturity of the founders go up. We are seeing for the first time that founders are now selling their businesses and becoming serial entrepreneurs. So, US has had a 50, 60-year-old history. And, there are entrepreneurs there who are in their fourth business. Yeah, we're just starting to see exits in India. We're seeing Sachin and Vinny Bansals and several others now, exit businesses and now are seeding hundreds of new entrepreneurs. So I think we are a developing ecosystem, and the ecosystem is maturing. We're still early days, but the opportunities are huge because there's just so many challenges, whether it's healthcare or agriculture or education or financial inclusion or logistics or transportation. India has thousands of problems,
Right.
which the government and public sector are not going to solve. And someone has to solve it. And who better position than startups with their innovative ideas and leveraging technology.
Right. And how involved are you all with startups after you all lend to them?
We're actually very involved.
Okay.
Again, because we've been venture capitalists ourselves, we've been
Yeah.
entrepreneurs ourselves. So,
Yeah.
our DNA is that of a business builder. So,
Right.
While we are not obligated to be involved, I think we love to be on top of the businesses we have supported.
Right.
And our founders look to us for advice and guidance and mentorship and help,
Right.
as they build businesses.
Right.
And so, we generally stay on top.
All right. And startups have a very innovation intensive environment, right? And I was listening to Elon Musk talk, and he talks about how at his companies, innovation is rewarded. He feels like you can't just give a speech and expect innovation and the rate of innovation to grow. So it's rewarded through compensation and stuff like that. So how do you think you can drive innovation? Is a speech enough, or do you have to compensate innovation with money? How do you create innovation or raise the growth rate of innovation?
I think, listen, the youngsters, of today are not necessarily driven by money. Within Trifecta, we actually have some of the smartest people, helping build Trifecta. They're more driven by sense of purpose and what they have been able to contribute,
Right.
Whether individually or as a team. So I think the most important motivator is sense of purpose
Okay.
and a direction. Yeah.
Okay.
You tell them that, listen, this is what we would love to solve, and they'll apply their mind and everything. And I think just that sense of purpose and that contribution is actually the biggest driver. Along the way, as people do a good job, yes, they will make wealth and everything else that comes with it. But I think largely it's about, how do you motivate them to bring out the best in them, and that's largely, telling them, what and how they can contribute to achieving a bigger purpose.
And what's the bigger purpose for you? Because you're a founder yourself, I
If we
believe.
can, in our lifetime, if we can build an institution like a Silicon Valley Bank in India,
Yeah.
we've already created a new asset class.
Right.
We've expanded the industry. Today, 5 years ago, nobody had heard of venture debt. Today, venture
Right.
debt is mainstream. Yeah,
Right.
every day you open the newspaper and there's a story on venture debt. There's a story on venture debt transaction. And so we brought it mainstream. We created awareness. There used to be a time where founders were uncomfortable taking venture debt. Today, there's a lot more awareness. Today, they understand the virtues, they understand the benefits. So I think we've created a lot of awareness. We've counseled and coached a lot of people. And if we can continue to develop the products and services, and these are hard problems to solve. And so, given our passion to build something new, we're constantly, innovating and thinking of what we can do. And if we can do it, well, I think in the next 5 years, we'll be a very large institution.
Okay.
That would have, been a very integral part of building out this great ecosystem in this part of the world.
Right.
So I think, that's what is driving us, and it's been fun so far.
Right. Do you feel like you're still learning?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah. Is it a process, or do you feel like you're always just learning, doing your job?
See, every interaction is intellectually stimulating. You're
Right.
meeting the smartest people, right? The founders are smart, and you spend 2 hours with them and you learn a few things.
Right.
And I think it's that desire to constantly learn, to share your experiences, to brainstorm, because these are all new business problems that we're trying to solve, right? And you may not have all the answers, and every day we see a new business. Yeah.
Right.
And so while we've been around for 30 years in the professional world, the fact is that, just within Trifecta's portfolio, there's 60 unique businesses.
Right.
Yeah, and every time we meet a new founder, a new company, it's a unique business. So you have got to apply your mind. You have to assess, what that opportunity is. So every day is a new learning. And so if you're part of this ecosystem, there is no pause to learning. In fact, your rate of learning is just exponential. And then when you have smart people working with you, I mean, we have a phenomenal team in Trifecta. Smartest, professionals who are from the greatest institutions, rank holders. When we discuss a particular company, again, the kind of insights that we get is again very stimulating. Yeah. And so, I don't have to have all the answers, but when I sit with my team and we brainstorm, very interesting insights come about.
Right.
So, I think this is we are a learning organization. We don't have answers to all the problems out there, but we're willing to learn and willing to develop the right kind of products and services. So I don't think learning stops even for a minute.
Right. And something that Kunal Shah says that is as important as putting hard work into your startup is taking a break, just for self-assessment, and also just so that your mind is at equilibrium. And so what's your fun activity? What's your stress relief?
So for me, stress buster is, I love to watch movies.
Okay. Any favorites that you want to recommend?
Lots, but just last evening I was watching, Steven Spielberg's biography.
Okay.
It's I watched most of his movies, and it was interesting. To just see how passionate he was, and that the talent was visible when he was as young as 20, and I remember watching Jaws when I was a kid, and he made that movie when he was only 25. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like these kind of biographies. I like war movies. I love romantic movies. So yeah, I'm a great movie buff. I like to travel a lot, and so I've been to 35, 40 countries.
Oh.
I love to take small vacations with family. I love the mountains and I love the seas. And then of course I love my music. So I've invested. Every room in my house, has an element of music and great
Okay.
equipment, and so I move from one room to the other, and there's always music.
Right. That's really refreshing to hear. What kind of music do you listen to?
Listen, mostly classic rock.
Okay. Favorite
My
bands?
favorites are,
Aerosmith.
a few numbers from Aerosmith, but it's mostly Pink Floyd and Dire
Okay.
Straits.
Right.
Kind of the soft rock.
Right.
I love the Scorpions, and I love
Okay.
Creed, and I
Yeah.
love Heart, and but I can easily. It depends on my mood. Yeah, I can immediately switch on to Hindustani classical music. I
Right.
can spend hours listening to Carnatic music. I can listen
Right.
to jazz.
Right.
And so, I've grown up around music,
Right.
and since I grew up in the South, I'm as comfortable listening to Carnatic music, as I am to, classic rock.
Right.
But yeah, mostly it's classic rock.
Right. Are there any books or podcasts that you recommend people read or listen to?
I've been listening to a lot more podcasts these days. I haven't
Okay.
been spending a lot of time reading books.
Okay. What are some of your favorites?
I love to read about, I especially been doing a lot, on Spotify
Okay.
and Apple podcasts, and, just listening to great entrepreneurs and
Right.
how they build their businesses, and,
Right.
how they build culture.
Yeah.
That's something, we are a young organization. And so most recently I've been spending a lot of time about how you build organization culture.
Right.
And what are one of the little things that become the culture of the organization. So been spending a lot of time on that, because we now have 3 offices and we have a team of 14, 15 people, but in 2 years we could be 35, 50.
Right.
And how do you make sure that everybody has the same values, has the same respect for every other person, and everybody is helping everybody else become successful, and be as passionate about building Trifecta Capital and the impact we will create, like the founders.
Right.
So mostly it's been around that. And there's a bunch of stuff out there for anybody to listen to.
I was listening to the founder of Tinder and Bumble, and she was saying that so Bumble is her second company after Tinder, and she said that she feels like the first 10, 15 hires are the most important because those decide the culture of the company. Is that something that you agree with?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, listen, you can't stick culture on the wall and say this is our culture, right? So,
Right.
I think the first few, obviously, every new person that joins the organization has to, has to become part of the culture that you want to build. And fortunately at Trifecta, we built a very open culture.
Okay.
It's there are no levels, and because we just have the quality of the people is so high that
Right.
we respect everybody.
What are things that you look for in people that you hire?
So we have a very high bar. So obviously we're looking for high IQ, and which means that we necessarily recruit from the top colleges. But we're looking for life experiences. We're looking for passion. We're looking for aptitude. Yeah.
Right.
So every IIT and BITSIAN, is got a high IQ.
Right.
But beyond that, we're really looking for sense of purpose. We're looking for aptitude. We're looking for life experiences, and
Right.
so most of my conversations with interviewees is about, tell me about your life experiences in school and college. What are the choices you made, and what got you to this point.
Right.
And so I rarely focus on the resume itself.
Right. I'll end with the last two questions. One is, so I've been doing this personal experiment, and it's more like a creative exercise than anything else. But I've been tweeting to Elon Musk every single day to be on my podcast. And yesterday was day 68 of just tweeting to him 68 days in a row. And every day I give him, I try to ask an interesting question, and I support it with a meme or something like that. And the chances of him seeing it are low, but if he sees it, I want it to catch his attention. And more than anything else, what it achieves is when I ask those questions and when I do research and think about what question I'm going to ask him, I end up coming up with interesting questions to ask the guests that I have on my podcast. So if this is something that I've asked the last few guests, if you were to try to contact Elon Musk, how would you approach that problem?
Just write to him.
Twitter? What's the medium?
Write an email to him.
But how would I get his email ID?
His email ID is not too difficult to find. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you can reach out to bits and friends in the valley, and getting his email ID is not going to be too difficult.
Okay.
And just just let him know that you're a big fan and you've been following his story and you're inspired and you'd love to chat with him. And I'm sure he's a busy man, but that's the best way. Just be direct,
Right.
or find someone who knows him and who can get you that meeting. And
Right.
I'm sure if I wanted to reach out to him, there'll be a bunch of people in the valley who will have access to him.
Right.
From within the venture capital community, it's not too difficult.
Okay.
And such kind of people are actually quite accessible. Unlike what we think, they're quite accessible.
Okay. Right.
They're just busy.
Yeah. Okay. So you think that the best method is to reach out to someone, get his email ID, and cold email him.
Yeah, or better still, if you know someone who knows him, then get a reference.
Right. Okay. I'll try and work on that.
Sure.
And finally, what advice do you have for college kids or for anyone in general? If you were to give them some advice, what would it be?
The advice I would give, and which I gave to my older son, who's just going to be graduating in the next 2 weeks from Stanford, is the college time is the best time, and just have a ball.
Okay.
This is not the time to take life too seriously. It's about experimenting. It's about making friends who probably will be with you for life. It's about trying to discover yourself. It's about maximizing the opportunities that college or institution offers, and but along the time, just have lots of fun. It should be a ball. It should be a party. Of course, it doesn't mean that you ignored your academics, but getting a 10 CGPA is not be all.
Right.
This is the time to build your personality and to learn from all the other smart people who are around, and build new skills. Right.
Thanks a lot for doing this. I actually learned a lot, and this was a lot of fun.
No, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing some of your previous podcasts, and thanks for reaching out to me. I've enjoyed the conversation as well, and
Right.
Hopefully, my learnings and experiences, would people might find it interesting.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, take care and stay safe.
Thank you so much for staying till the end of this episode. If you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and share this with all of your friends.